All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Going to probably keep joining as we're going, but probably going to go ahead and get started here. So this is the Regional Digital Opportunity Plan pre-contracting meeting. Thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it. I know it's been a lot of work for everybody over the last month or two, applying and getting your applications in. I really appreciate it. So yeah, we're going to start with word from Dr. Tamara Holmes, Director of the Broadband Office.
All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. I just wanted to jump on before you all get knee deep in the requirements and next steps to say congratulations. I know I had a chance to see some of you all, I think that was earlier this month, over at the Marriott, and some of you all were in Richmond with VACAP. And so I just wanted to say congratulations. We're really excited to be working with all of you and your organizations. And I will say that, again, Virginia seems to be a model. I shared yesterday on a call with both digital equity leaders and broadband leaders across the nation about the work we're doing with our community action agencies. So don't be surprised if some of your peers in other states reach out to you all about participating in regional digital opportunity plan development. And so with that, just to give you all an update, we are in the process of hiring a staffer. Cole and Chandler have been gracious to share their time with you all in getting the program up and running, but they aren't the folks that'll be officially assigned to helping you all. And so not that I want to steal your staff, but there is a job opening currently at DHCD for a coordinator. That position is actually funded for a 5-year window. And so if you all know someone that does great work in your communities that might want to come work for the state, to manage this process as we as the state start looking at not just access to broadband around infrastructure, but looking at affordability and adoption and ensuring folks have opportunities around digital literacy, and really making sure that the groups you all work with on a day-to-day basis not only have access, but are given opportunities for digital literacy resources and be able to take full advantage of having access to the internet. And so with that, I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Chandler and Cole, who will be presenting to you all this afternoon, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, Tamara. All right, so gonna get started here with just an overview and agenda of where we're gonna go in this presentation. Just a forewarning to everybody, it might get a little technical at some point. We do have to go over some of the more technical requirements that we will need from all of you. Our grant making, the organization that we're getting the grant from, NIST and NTIA, has imposed some requirements on these grants that require some information from all the sub-recipients. So we'll go over all of that. Chandler's going to cover that. But just to get started, we're gonna give some updates. Tamara already went over a couple of them, but we're going to talk about the consultant procurement, how that's going, the project timeline, given that we're a little bit behind already from where we started. Going to go over a sample and example project timeline, and then talk about stakeholder engagement, and then some of the budget items. Provide clarification on some of the budget items that we've received questions on. Then we'll go over, like I said, some of the technical details for the contract that's going to go out to all of you in the coming weeks. And then we're going to finish off with some items that I'm going to be following up with all of you on after this meeting. Some things that I'm going to need for all of you to submit into CAMS and send back to us. So move forward now and start with just some updates. With the consultant that's going to be helping you all. Sorry. All right, sorry about that. The consultant that's going to be helping you all with the stakeholder engagement and survey and everything. We are in the final stages of procuring that consultant, and we're hoping to have them onboarded within the next month. So hopefully, take that into consideration in your timelines. But hopefully in March we'll have that consultant started and ready to assist all of you in the engagement process and with the survey. And then just some clarification on the timeline. As of now, we're still going to go with plans being due to DHCD August 1st. So we're going to stick with the same timeline. So if you have to adjust, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but if you have to adjust your timeline, we are going to be sticking with August 1st because we do have to get the plan we do have to get the state plan to NTIA on a pretty quick turnaround after we get the plans from all of the agencies. So, and then moving forward, just some stuff on these are some of the common questions we've gotten from people on the budgets. There's some clarification here. So food expenses, and we heard this from a lot of agencies, food expenses are reimbursable, actually, which is great news. They are reimbursable if they're expensed during a planning event. So if you're having a focus group or a stakeholder engagement meeting or doing interviews and you want to provide food, you can do that. It just needs to be part of this event. So as long as the food is for a planning activity, then it's totally fine. Gift cards, however, are not going to be reimbursable. So if you want to, I have some agencies in their budgets talk about providing gift cards to participants in focus groups or in stakeholder engagement meetings or interviews. Unfortunately, we can't do that. However, you can. As of now, our understanding is that you can enter people into a raffle, and you can enter participants into a raffle for a gift card or a gift of some kind. Again, it's kind of little clarification here, but that's what we're going to go with for now. That you can enter participants into a focus group or interviews into a raffle, and you can expense that. And then sometimes we'll go into this later a little bit more, but we are likely going to need clarification from agencies who submitted budgets. Some people, personnel versus administration costs were a little bit. There were different understandings of what was personnel versus what was administration in some of the budgets that were submitted. So we'll go over some clarifications on there just to make sure that that's held constant across all agencies. So this is a sample project timeline, given that we're a little bit behind the start here. Again, this is not going to be the timeline for every agency. You move at your own pace with your partners. Some agencies are probably going to be a lot faster than this, and maybe already going to be starting focus group meetings in March. That's totally fine. Some agencies might not start their focus group meetings until late March or excuse me, May. Whatever works best for you. This is just a sample project timeline given the start of things being moved up a little bit. So in March, getting under contract is what we're doing now. Your planning activities are going to start in March. Develop your project plan, and then you probably start with. We ask everybody to start with just stating a vision, kind of like a mission statement for what you view digital opportunity, digital equity as in your region. So that's probably the starting point for writing your plan. That's something that we have to include in the state plan is a definition for digital opportunity, digital equity, so that we can kind of a baseline for the state plan. And then in April, maybe you're moving to scheduling your stakeholder engagement activities, identifying who you want to participate in them, developing or taking the survey tools from the consultant will hopefully be onboarded by then, and providing everybody with the survey tool. And you'll be planning that, and then moving forward to hosting the focus group meetings or whatever stakeholder engagement meetings you're doing, interviews, and then distributing the survey tool in your communities. After that, the needs assessment, asset inventory, and then you're moving to bring in all of the research that you've done, all the actual assessment activities, you're moving to bring those together, synthesize them into an actual plan, and then develop an implementation strategy from that, and then finalizing the plan and submitting it to us. So hopefully that's helpful. If anybody wants more details on this, just let me know. And so stakeholder engagement is something that you are required to do as part of this development of your regional plan. And we suggest that at a minimum, you engage local governments in the localities in which your planning activities are going to take place. Engage the local governments in the planning process. And then, yeah, I'll send out the slides, and I'll send out, you're going to get a lot of stuff from me after this meeting, but I'll make sure the slides are sent out to everybody. So in planning district commissions, we also suggest that you engage the planning district commissions. If you don't know what those are, or if you're familiar, we can help facilitate those connections if necessary. But these are just two critical groups that we are hoping everybody brings them into the planning process. So I'm going to pass it off to Chandler now for the fun stuff. So here you go, Chandler.
Thanks, Cole. Good to see everybody again. I'm really excited to be working with all the action agencies over the next few months to better understand broadband affordability and adoption, and build on the work we've done as a broadband office. Like Cole said, these are more of the technical components. The fun part about this is that it's a federal award, which comes along with some federal requirements that we'll walk through. The purpose of this is to not be a game of gotcha or tricky. It's just to walk through what those federal requirements are, and break down what the contract provisions you'll be seeing are in the contract document when Cole sends that out in the next couple of weeks. So to start from the beginning in terms of reporting of the process, you guys have already submitted an application under the CAMS portal. That's also where our monthly reports are going to be conducted as a part of the project, to make sure that we understand where you guys are at in your planning phases. It's also the way to identify any kind of issues that might be going on, and for us to help out solve any problems you guys might be experiencing with those monthly reports. And we'll be in touch about, by what day of the month those will be required when we send out that contract document. Next slide, Cole. So the reimbursement practices, these funds are going to be distributed to community action agencies based on a reimbursement basis. So in addition to that monthly report in CAMS, there will also be a way to request reimbursement for activities that you guys have undertaken in the region. So more details will be coming out on that as well. Just a best practice that we recommend. It's not required if you want to get a paper check. Not knocking anybody that wants to get a paper check there, but if you're able to, it would help us streamline the reimbursement process if your action agency is registered with the Virginia Department of Accounts and has an electronic transfer agreement set up with Virginia DOA. If you're interested in that and may not already be set up, reach out to our office and we can initiate next steps there. So now we're going to get into some contract provisions. You guys will see these same things in that template contract we send out. We just wanted to go over them now and get in front of any kind of complex legal language that might be baked into those agreements. So next slide. We're going to go through these quickly. I don't want to bog down your Friday afternoon with going over contractual requirements, but we'll hit the high points. So there's a prohibition on supplanting. This, by and large, is not going to apply to you guys. We are not in the understanding that community action agencies have any other large digital equity projects going on. But if you did, these funds couldn't be used to replace any other Digital Equity Act activities you guys already have going. So if you started another digital equity or broadband project since we last spoke, let us know. But for the most part, this won't apply to any action agencies out there. We also can't charge any profits or fees as a grant expense. So just keeping that in mind, we can't profit off of a federal grant. Good rule, and it's just in the contract to be considered later on. There's also a prohibition on grant funds to support or oppose collective bargaining. This is collective bargaining, meaning in some cases unionization. So just wanted to point that out. I don't imagine that any action agency is involved in supporting or opposing collective bargaining, but if you are, don't do it with these funds. So getting into a couple of other additional things, and I want to point out at the front of this slide, the main takeaway here is documentation, right? I mean, the more you guys as an action agency are able to document your activities under this under the regional digital opportunity plans, the better off we'll be in case somebody, as our grant administrator at the federal government, comes down and requests information. We'll have that information ready to provide to them. That's what the genesis of this slide is in terms of requirements under the Uniform Administrative Requirements, cost principles, and audits, commonly known sometimes as 2 CFR Part 200. At the bottom there's also a separate list of requirements. We would recommend scanning through these just to make sure that you're aware of those that are out there. But by and large, it's an exercise in documentation. And we're going to get into a couple of the specific items under those on the next slide. A couple of examples here of federal provisions under that 2 CFR Part 200. One is about Buy American. If you were able to listen to the State of the Union a couple of weeks ago, President Biden mentioned that under the infrastructure law, we're going to source as many products as we possibly can from inside the United States. That's been passed on as a requirement in this grant process as well. So if you have the ability, like Cole was mentioning earlier, if you're buying some kind of giveaway for maybe a survey participation, to the extent possible, we ask that you make sure that those products were built in the United States. There's also let's go back one more. There's also provision about contracting with small and minority businesses, women business enterprises, and labor surplus area firms. Similar to Buy America, if you have the ability to work with that acronym is SWAMs, small women or minority owned business, the grant requirements require us to do so. We're following that as well as a state when we're contracting with other folks as well under these federal guidelines. Another requirement, protection of whistleblowers. So I'm not sure if your action agencies have a centralized office or are virtually based now in the last couple of years, but usually in every office you'll see in a common area where there's this list of practices and procedures, right? So this is another one of those practices and procedures that a part of this grant should be displayed somewhere for employees to see, and that's protection of whistleblowers. So the highlighted portion there is important about making sure that informing employees in writing about the rights and remedies provided under that code section about protection of whistleblowers. So this is also one thing we want to note here, and this is an important part. So I would ask to draw specific attention to this. We want to talk about a human subject research provision of our work that we'll do in reaching out to communities. So the federal government and the regulations of our grant programs were very concerned wisely about making sure that no personally identifiable information was able to be tracked back through this stakeholder engagement process. So as a broadband office, we submitted a request for exemption with certain caveats that we have to follow with our research. The two things we want to relay down for action agencies is that if you're going to be conducting research through focus groups, through surveys, that information that's recorded should be gathered in a way that the participants cannot be identified. So if you're conducting a survey, we ask that you not collect names of individuals. There's some other criteria in there as well, like addresses. And we also ask that if you're doing any kind of quantitative numbers-based or interviews, that those documents as well don't identify personally identifiable information. And yeah, we'll go ahead and take a question as well. So Monique, I see you have a hand raised.
Hi, Chandler. Just a quick question, because a lot of times with surveys they ask for email addresses, and a lot of people use their name in their email. Is that still acceptable to collect since that email addresses?
It would be if you needed to be able to set up an email address capture. Yes, that would be acceptable. But when you guys are reporting that data to us, or including in an aggregate report, we would just ask that you take the email addresses out, so those aren't included at that point and publicly displayed. I see Brandy, you have a hand raised as well. Feel free to unmute and jump in.
Yeah, does that apply to a phone number as well? Because we were planning on having a drawing or a raffle for a gift card for people who enter our survey, and not everybody has an email.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this provision isn't meant to get in the way of something that you would logically need to do to be able to provide a gift card, right? I mean, obviously, you're going to have to collect phone numbers. At some point, though, in that process of developing the report, the action agency will have to go through and make sure that whatever information you guys are including as data in your reports can't be linked back to somebody that participated in a survey or focus group.
And so this is Tamara, just to jump in. We have the same requirement for a program we're administering. And so we do collect the information. It's just that we often set a unique identifier for each of the participants. And so it may be that for each of your folks that are completing a survey or participating in a group, the only way you link them back together is this unique identifier and whatever phone number or email you would have, but you cannot give that information to us. So you would have like a master list internally and then a document that shows a unique identifier so that at some point, if you had to, you could connect them back to their contact information, if that makes sense.
Yes. So essentially we can collect it. We just can't share it with you.
Correct.
Okay.
And Monique, I see you still have a hand raised. I don't know if that was for a follow-up question. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I had to take.
No problem. Let's go on to the next slide then, Cole. Audit requirements. This is an audit requirement that's triggered if you're a recipient of other federal funds. So if your action agency receives more than $750,000 in federal dollars annually, then you would be subject to a single audit. So that would only apply to folks that have other federal funding sources outside of this grant. There are some financial document requests that we have as an agency under our audit policy. For the most part, unless you guys are involved in other DHCD programs, we're going to be asking and reaching out for general financial statements of the action agency. There's a table that'll be included in that contract we send out for if you're over the $100,000 threshold in total refunds received from DHCD. But I would expect just as a general rule of thumb, at least we'll be asking for financial statements through the CAMS platform under this award. And procurement requirements. This also goes back to the parts about 2 CFR Part 200. And again, is by and large an exercise in documentation. So if you as an action agency already have procurement practices that are written down and in effect that you follow when you're selecting a consultant maybe to help out on a project, any procurement you do under this activity or selection of contractors to come in and help should follow your own written guidelines as an action agency. If you don't have written guidelines down, either one, formalize those existing processes you guys do now, or default to the Virginia Public Procurement Act's procurement guidelines. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Cole to talk about immediate next steps, and then we'll open it up for Q&A.
All right, thanks, Chandler. As of this meeting, we're going to go ahead and say that you guys can go ahead and proceed with any planning activities that don't require immediate reimbursement. So if you have any activities relating to your planning efforts that you don't need reimbursements for, which I realize, this might be a limited list of items, you can go ahead and get started on those activities while we're working out on the contract and we're getting some of these other items to officially get you set up in CAMS and approved and everything, so that we can start processing reimbursements. And then second, we're going to need community action agencies to resubmit an updated timeline and budget if necessary. So the things that we've covered today, if we're going to need like the food reimbursements and the gift card raffle and things like that. We will need revised budgets uploaded for those agencies that those things apply to. And then third, an addendum to that second point, we are going to be sending out questions that we got from NTIA on some of the budgets that we submitted up to them. We're going to be sending those questions down to you, the lead agencies, the administrating agencies, to answer those questions so that we can send them back up to get approval. So we will need the revised budget to be submitted in CAMS, the revised budget and timeline. You can submit those as just attachments in CAMS, and then I'm going to email all of you who have questions, and everybody will get at least one question because there's one that was applied to everyone. So I'm going to email you, and you can just respond to those questions. And they're fairly straightforward, the questions. They're nothing too onerous or too specific. Just they took a look at the budgets that you attached, and they had some questions on some of the specific charges. So you can respond to those questions to me via email. That's fine. And then we're going to distribute a customized contract to each agency, to each administrating agency, for your review and signature. And that'll happen over the next week or two. And
Cole, if I could jump in for a second too.
Yeah.
And one of those provisions of that contract too is going to be to formalize that relationship between the lead CAA in each region and the partner CAAs. So expect to see that requirement from us as well. If it's an MOU, just to formalize that agreement and partnership, that'll be a requirement as well in that contract, just to be thinking about over the next couple of weeks. And if you need any assistance from us about what that MOU might look like, let us know, reach out, and we'd be happy to dig up a template somewhere and send it over.
Yeah, and then once we get that contract to you, you'll have 2 weeks to sign it and return it to us, and then we can get started. And then you will have 15 days from when I email you, and I'll let you know when that is. But when I email you the things that I need, from each agency, I'll send you an email, and just get those items back to me within 15 days. But I'll identify what the date is. But I'll make sure to specify in each of the emails what we need from each of your agencies, just so you're not wondering, whether you're missing something or not. And then once your contract is signed and everything's uploaded in CAMS and everybody's specific needs have been met, then we will be able to go ahead and get started with planning activities. And so we will now go ahead and take your questions. So, yeah, Anna, can we go ahead and get started with you?
Yeah, it would be super helpful if you could just go ahead and send out a sample MOU when you send out the other stuff, and then
Yeah, absolutely.
be consistent and easy.
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, glad to. And just to clarify, those MOUs will only be required if there's a financial relationship there. So I mean, if an action agency is in your region, but you may not be transferring funding from the lead agency to that CAA, that MOU would not be required.
Yeah, Brandy.
And when are we going to know more about your reporting requirements? Because that might influence the MOU from our standpoint.
It's a good question we can clarify on our end. I mean, the monthly report will be based around a couple of questions. I mean, provide a summary of activities that have gone on since the last monthly report. Let us know about any outstanding issues that there might be. And if you're behind on the schedule, please summarize how you plan to get back onto the planning schedule as outlined in the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Monique.
Can't figure out what button to push. You had mentioned I'm starting, going ahead and starting on a project. Did you make a comment about reimbursement? Because part of that time is, reimbursement is going to be staff time. So what exactly is it that we can go ahead and start doing that does fall under reimbursement?
I think that's going to be just dependent on your individual project timeline and project plan. If you don't have any activities that can't begin without reimbursement, then you know, that probably won't be able to get started on anything until we're officially, you know, under contract. But for those agencies that do have things, you know, any scheduling or planning activities, or just, you know, planning the focus groups or whatever it may be, I can't say anything specifically because I don't know. It's going to come down to each agency. But
Okay, thanks.
If there's anybody joining via phone, feel free to unmute yourself and just ask questions. We want to make sure you guys are included as well.
Question. In terms of the staffing, are there any specific skill set you would hope that the average person would have to make sure this project is successful?
That's a good question, and I want to make sure I understand it too. Are you referring to folks that would be within each action agency conducting the activities, or the person we're hiring for the state digital opportunity plan?
The person in the local agency.
I would recommend, I mean, part of the reason that we wanted to work with action agencies in this effort was because you guys do community assessments. I believe it's every 3 to 5 years. I think that the more involved that the person that usually conducts those community assessments is in this process, the more positive it'll be.
Okay.
Brandy?
And you mentioned earlier that the consultant is going to be developing a survey that would be available maybe in May or April.
Well, yeah, probably around, hopefully in April. But that is something that we put in the RFP for the consultant, is the development of a survey and then the facilitation of that survey between the agencies. A statewide survey, that is.
So, you know, as an action agency, if you guys already have a survey ready to go and designed, run it by us. We'd like to see it. But you're more than welcome to use your own survey tool as designed internally. But we would, if you haven't thought about planning out what those survey questions look like so far, we'd recommend to hold for the consultant to be able to do that, and that way we have consistent questions across the state.
I mean, I agree consistent questions across the state would be great, but waiting till April is another month that we don't have to collect survey results. And that really makes me nervous. I mean, especially since it's not going to be April 1, it's going to be April 30th.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point. I mean, you know, it's something that we're going to present to the consultant on day one when they sign their contract between us and them to be able to make the survey tool. We'll keep you guys updated as we go along there. If it looks like it's going to be delayed much into the month of April, then we'll step in as the broadband office and make sure that we can get a survey tool out there so you guys don't wait any longer past early April to get that out.
Yeah, but that was like the first step we were going to take.
Yeah.
In
In that case,
later.
Yeah. And I know we've been in dialogue about that too. So let's follow up again after this call. If there's a way we can have a pre activity for that consultant just to run by that survey tool before they're officially under contract, we'll explore to see if we can do that with them as well.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Monique, did you have another question?
I did, because that was, thank you, Brandon, for bringing that up, because that was my question, because, you know, we're in a process of, you know, once we got in the okay, we're locking in our communities assessments, and we're starting them in March. So, and we already have a survey tool, but we're in a position where we can make an adjustment or add, you know, a supplement to it. So, you know.
Yeah, I think that the survey, I think it's definitely something on our radar that we're going to figure out, but I don't have any immediate, you know.
That's really helpful feedback for us, though,
Yeah.
Monique, just to know that you guys are getting ready to start your community assessment. So we'll push internally to get that through. To be able to get started, because we don't like the idea to delay starting into April as well, right? I mean, we understand there's been a couple of delays already in this process, and want to make sure we can get going as soon as possible from here. Last call for questions from anybody online. Yeah, sure thing. And yeah.
Some of the local governing bodies have began to work towards making broadband accessible in various localities. To what degree do you see how to ensure that this access and available to all individuals within our region?
So in those cases, there's, like you mentioned, there's a lot of counties and cities that already have infrastructure projects underway. I would recommend making sure that the plan's designed in context of that, right? Because, you know, without access, it's hard to have affordability and adoption. But in places where there's already broadband access, you know, we'd recommend the focus of these plans be on, you know, one, is that access to infrastructure affordable? And if not, why not? And how can you help address it in that regional plan? And if you have access and it's affordable, what are some barriers to adoption that you see? It's going to depend on each region, right? I mean, the more rural a region is, generally, the more they're going to have to talk about, you know, how is infrastructure being deployed in that area, and when it's being deployed, how can it be affordable and fully adopted at the same time? But if an action agency is around Richmond, well, Richmond's already got broadband access, you know, so how do you make sure it's affordable and fully adopted? But our general thinking here on plans is that they're less focused on the infrastructure deployment side of things, right? I mean, there's a lot of work and a lot of energy going on around that now. And the more we can unpack what digital opportunity issues there are on the other side of the coin with affordability and adoption, that'll help us move the needle there.
I have a question that's more nuts and bolty, I guess, about reporting. So I know once a month, are you talking like the 15th, the 30th? Like, when do you anticipate needing that information to be in the system each month?
It's a good question. I don't have an answer to.
Okay, great.
It'll depend on when we get under contract start. If CAAs are getting under contract in mid-March or early March, then we'll make the first report due the 15th of April. Just to keep it in the mid-month, you know, it'll be about a month after we get everybody under contract.
Yeah, Monique.
Hey, I just want to make sure I'm clear, because when y'all talked about stakeholder engagement, you had mentioned the planning district commissions and local government in a planning process. But just to be clear, who exactly do you want to fill out the survey?
So the survey is for actual constituents and residents in your communities. The local governments and PDCs, we just want you to engage them in the planning process to make sure that they're kind of, you know, at the table and aware of the development of the plan. You don't have to have an MOU or subgrant funds to them. That's not at all what we're saying. Just that they are aware of the plan and they have an opportunity to maybe participate if they'd like to. But the extent to which you engage with them is up to you, really. We just want to make sure that they're consulted. But the actual survey, if you look at the application guidance document that we sent a while back, it goes into what the survey is a little bit, and you know, we'll obviously, you know, follow up with more details on the survey, because that's clearly a pretty important item. But that's just to gauge. That falls into the assessment activities of your plan. So that's when you're looking at your region and your communities and trying to assess the state of digital equity in those communities. So the surveys to gauge barrier and identify barriers to digital opportunity, digital equity in the constituent communities for your participating agencies.
Okay, great. Now, I just want to be sure because our community needs assessments, they're like 3 layers. Excuse me. And so we have to do the community level. And we also have to do community partners. And then there's one for like elected officials, board members that are combined. So I just wanted to make sure in our mind that we were reaching out to constituents, but I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have to reach out and get feedback from those agencies, other agencies as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, definitely more an FYI relationship with local governments. We just want them to know what's going on, and not necessarily one of the people that has to get a survey.
Yeah, and you don't need to run the survey by them or either. If that's
Yeah.
Anyone's impression, you do not need to do that. And then Rufus, do you have a question? You can go to Brandy while Rufus maybe works out technical.
I don't mean to harp on the survey, but if you all use a consultant to do it, will you all also pay to have it translated to different languages?
Yeah, the consultant will do that.
Because we're looking at needing ours translated into at least 5 different languages. And we'd love to have you absorb that cost.
No, that's a great point. I think transparently where this train is heading is that we're going to need to get a survey tool designed pretty quickly and likely before we get a consultant on board. But we don't have the capacity to translate that into 5 different languages, right? So that's when we would pull them in when they're on board to do it.
Rufus, were you able to? Any other questions from anybody?
Cole and I will stick around. We've got another 10, 15 minutes of time allotted. So I mean, if anybody has questions after we stop the recording, we'll be around for those as well. Cole, do you want to close us out? Anything else to go over?
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate everybody attending. Looking forward to getting started, and this is the tricky part, but the actual planning will be hopefully a breeze for everybody and pretty exciting. And then expect to see an email from me hopefully today with next steps and the questions I need you all to answer. And then we're giving you 15 days to get those back to us, but the sooner the better, really, on everything here. The sooner we can get everybody under contract, as soon as we get approval from NIST or NTIA to release those funds. Yeah, just expect an email to me, and I'll send out these slides to everybody, and the recording will go out as well at some point. So if you need any other information, feel free to contact me or Chandler or the digital opportunity email that I've been emailing you all from. But yeah, I think so. I think that concludes the actual meeting. And like Chandler said, we'll stick around for a little bit if anybody has any more specific questions. So
Appreciate the time, everybody.
thanks, y'all.